Hey everyone, Mike Fairbourn here. Good to be back with you. Happy Friday. It is happy. Actually, yeah, I did see this earlier, Friday the 13th. But hey, we'll try to make work a good work of our ThinkScript class. We don't want any issues to pop up. I've had actually a couple issues today now that I think about it. But hey, looking forward to a discussion on a couple of new indicators that we've got with thinkorswim and specifically tied into potentially trading. We're looking at volatility, I should say velocity and acceleration type indicators with the trend. They're very interesting and unique. I want to break those down and add a little bit of ThinkScript to it again as we do, specifically one on the scan tab and the market watch tab specifically. So I'll look forward to diving into that with you today. And hopefully those could be really quite helpful for identifying trends. It does look really, really interesting. And I've noticed lately some of the indicators that thinkorswim does put on new, they do tend to be a little bit more, the word sort of kind of, they're not like regular indicators. They're using different types of code. So that can be always interesting too when we're looking at different scenarios and setups. Joining the chat on my friend James Boyd. To see me in the chat is JB. And 12 days to Christmas is what he tells us right there. Wow, it's coming on quick. Good to have you all on board, though. We've got David Trazel, we've got Robert Boucher, Chris B, we've got Sia, we've got Life of the Fast Lane, and Relative Healthcare. All right. Well, good to have you all on board, folks. Any questions, comments? You know where to put them. You put them right into the chat so James Boyd can help us with those. I'll keep an eye on those as well. All right, well, let's do this. We got to dive into this because there's quite a bit to discuss on this indicator. Interesting one. Let's start off with some disclosure items first here. Information here is for general information purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. Now, the paper money software application is for educational purposes only. Successful trading during one time period does not guarantee successful investing of actual funds during a later time period. Backtesting results presented are hypothetical. There is no guarantee that the same strategy implemented today would produce similar results. Investing does involve risk, including loss of principal, and past performance of any security strategy does not guarantee future results or success. All right, well, let's take a look at the markets here with 12 days left to go before Christmas. What do we have? All right, wow, look at that. So we're just taking a look at some of the markets here, market action. Just popped up Google. I want to take you on that. Here is the market, kind of fulfilling a bit of a seasonal move. I think you guys have already been using some of those indicators in terms of linear regression that plots over a specific time frame. This is looking at over a 2-year time frame linear regression. You can see up top here. And with that, what we're looking at specifically is price and time, the correlations between the two. We've got our midline here. I've drawn in a couple of different lines. I'm going to go ahead and throw in that linear regression channel right now because that can be of use. And by the way, this would be a very straightforward one to do a ThinkScript onto, is in terms of looking at signals while we're on it, whether it be for the market or a different stock specifically. We could do that. Let's go ahead and just take a look at this real quick. Okay. I think we're good there. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. So with that, let me just point out a couple of items here. On the blue lines, first of all, are the linear regression lines. This is the main sort of reversion to the mean line in the middle here. The one up above is a standard deviation above and a standard deviation below that main line. So it gives us that reference point. Here is kind of an idea. I was just going to throw this out to you before we hit our new indicator. Take a look at the markets. These, by the way, these linear regression channels are interesting. The reason why I'm hitting this first is we are kind of at this area where we do not have upside resistance. I mean, this is all-time high territory here, right? There are no prior highs. And those linear regression lines can be interesting. They can be interesting with a bounce off the top coming down off, and I've drawn one over a 1-year time frame. In fact, let's just go ahead and change that linear regression to a 1 year. So it looks for that. And notice it's a little bit closer to what I've got. I just simply drew them off of high here, and high here. It just so happened that it did match that. But there can be all kinds of ThinkScripting done around a linear regression line as it's coming off, prices as it's coming off a linear regression line, like coming off the top, breaking above, and then breaking back below that upper channel. Same holds true off the bottom here, breaking below the channel and then coming back up above that channel. You could get a signal that could be done, in a scan format. We could scan for that. Really nice across the entire, let's say, S&P 500 group of stocks out there. Just throwing out an idea for one that we could look at in the future if you wanted to, or one off the top here too. If you're too high, you're expecting a pullback in the market. Well, what about one that's touching off that upper channel, touching off, going above it, but then crossing back down below it, just like we've seen here a few times. Like look over here with me, right there. On my own line, you could kind of see it here and here clearly. Not so much the linear regression line, but a 6-month line might actually match mine because this is going back. It's looking, remember, time, prices over time for that 1 year, a 6-month. Let's just try it, see what happens here. There you go. There's your 6-month. Well, we're getting a little bit closer, aren't we? But still not quite there. Anyways, kind of a fun little indicator to play with. The last one I would say is just a reversion to the mean. Are you bouncing back off the mean and going higher, breaking above the middle line of the linear regression? Something like that could easily be built. Okay, so park that in the back of your minds. Maybe we can do that down the road. But because just I wanted to hit it, I just was thinking about it as I was getting started here because the market, like I said, is into that all-time high new territory. We don't really have prior highs to look at. So having said that, the NASDAQ's same thing. There you go. How's the NASDAQ doing around that 6-month time frame? Let's go to a 1 year. We'll just see what we've got here. There you go. So there are some interesting indications too. Sometimes, when you hit high levels, you could see that. All right, well, let's continue on. So there is a new indicator. I'm going to take this off right now. Linear regression. We're going to find it over here. It's a velocity. I want to explain what's going on here. This is brand new, velocity and acceleration. I'm going to click on this first. You can always get some updates, some info on it when it loads up. I'm in a demo account. It might not load up here. That's okay. I'm going to add it, and then what we can do, I'll show it to you. It puts an indicator at the bottom of our screen. I'm actually going to take off RSI for now, and we're just going to look at it. It's interesting with some of these newer indicators. What they look for are dual signals. So they're getting a signal here, not from just velocity, but also acceleration. And I'm going to make this a little bit thicker before we dive into it a bit more. Then we'll go through the code of it. But here we go. Okay, so I'll give you a breakdown on it as well. But let's look at it first. I'm going to show you a few different things that are happening here as we look at it. So quickly, let's go into our wheel, and I'll explain a couple of, not that wheel, this wheel right here on the indicator itself. Now, the standard default length, as you can see right there, is a 26. So it's looking at the last 26 days worth of data is what's happening right now. Okay. Now that indicator is just applied to the closing prices only. It says it right there. Okay. So the average length, this is the length itself of the smoothing period for velocity. It's using a 9. That's the default. We can use a 10. I think a 10's common. I know JB and others, will look at like a 10-period exponential moving average. I've certainly looked at it in my rooms as well. A 10-period, we can change that. That is just that's just the default for the indicator itself. Happy to change that to a 10, but 9 or 10, keeping it small. The 9 does reflect like the MACD, for example, right? That's something that could be looked at as well. All right, so here we go. Let's pull this up, and then I'll just kind of break these down a little bit for us as we go through. Now, the velocity, that is represented by that smoothing line right here. That's the smoothing. That's the average line we're looking at. So that is, in fact, our 10-period EMA. Now, that 10-period EMA is actually on our acceleration, is what's going on there. Okay, so on the acceleration itself. So this measures really the how fast the price is changing by calculating the average price change over the specified period of time. Okay, the signal occurs when a couple things happen. You've got to have the velocity pointing higher, and you're going to get that when you're starting to see that there is a change in the price action. It's slowing down a little bit, and you see that in the red shade. So prices, there's an acceleration with the lighter red, and then you've got the darker red coming back up here. Okay. Now, this will begin to shift. This line, as you can see right here, where does this line, the velocity line, actually start to move higher? If you can see that, what it's doing is actually shifting right when you turn from that the brighter red to the darker red right here. And notice you're starting to creep up closer and closer and closer to the midline here. Okay. Now, what we're looking at when we're looking outside of the velocity line, this is the acceleration. Now, this is just simply the rate of change of the velocity itself. In other words, how quickly the velocity itself is changing. Okay. It's calculated using the average difference between the smooth velocity and its past values over a specified length of time right there. Okay. So it's combining a couple of different things. Right? Just like, say, for example, if we're looking at over a time frame here, let's see, I was thinking about how I could address this and explain this to you guys. So there's a specific time frame that we're looking at. This is just a time frame. We can find a time frame anywhere on the chart. We're looking at a time frame. We're looking at the rate of change, the velocity over that time frame, and then the acceleration is the next part. And that's the plotting of the histogram to highlight positive and negative values. Where does it become positive? Right there at the 0 line. It becomes positive there. Okay. Let's hit a couple more points. Now, the signal itself, if we were looking at the signal, we're trying to capture it when we've got two things occurring. We're crossing above the 0 line, and this doesn't always happen, you've got to have the velocity also pointing higher as well. Let's examine these. We can look at the NASDAQ. I just left on the NASDAQ, but it does try to capture almost sort of like that swing trade time frame, which is kind of like weeks to a month. Sometimes some people will go up to a month in a swing trade, but generally, that's kind of like, they might refer to it as short term, but you could say days to weeks, weeks being maybe up to 4 weeks or a month or so. But it really tries to capture when you're getting combinations of velocity and acceleration. But that all occurs, if I can just, I'll try to highlight this in yellow. We'll just flip some colors here. But right as you cross that level right there. Now, where did that cross occur? Somewhere over here. That was actually one more bar over, I think. Maybe there, one more bar. So it's an interesting level where it just says, okay, if I'm looking for really sort of like the meat of the move, or really where the strength might come in, you have to have not just one signal, but two right there breaking out. What's interesting is with this, you're actually getting a bit of a change in trend. And that's something, that change in trend, the trend is something that you could also keep a watch on too, an eye on as well. But maybe an interesting way to kind of pick up on a stronger trend, because you'll notice that there was like possibly a really, I could say like a really sort of weaker or short-term trend in here. I can make the case for a higher high and a higher low. It's kind of hard to see. I'll clear it off. There's kind of a higher high and a higher low in here. It ignored that signal. Okay, we didn't quite get there. I'm looking for a day or two, 1 to 2 day close above the zero line. So in other words, we're into our green phase here. We get above that level in the last 1 or 2 days. Now, some could say, hey, I just wanted to shoot for 2. I'll show you how to change that in the coding here that we've got. But yeah, that's what we're looking at here, the dual signal to look at that move. So let's do this. There's kind of a pretty strong move. Now, that would have been interesting. Now, this is obviously the NDX. We'll flip it to a stock here in just a second. You can look at some of the others as well right there. Really kind of a strong move. It captured that. Outside of this move too, coming off that base right there, kind of an earlier signal, but it was suggesting, hey, there could be some strength in here. The thing I did notice with this too is sometimes you might be getting a confirmation, which many people look at anyhow, and that is off those bottoms, maybe a 2 to 3 day confirmation bounce. In other words, we've got maybe a higher low here, but do we get that follow through? And that's kind of what this indicator is kind of kicking in at those points. And notice, I mean, this still would match like a days to weeks. Look how quickly right there it hits. Try to way off. I'm always curving to the left. those left curves right there. But it got a little bit early. So there was still a little bit of room, but it did kind of curve off. Now, you can get a divergence indication on the downside as well. And what that would look like is any one of these indicators. Of course, the velocity line starting to flatten out or dip. You see that right there, the light blue line starting to dip a little bit. Okay. Notice that the velocity line stays above zero. That's also an indication of the strength of trend. So there are a couple of things going on. Dual signal, you might want to look for both, but then also, this would be a dual signal over here to the downside. Didn't last for long. Okay. But, sometimes, people might be, let's say they want to get in on a trade with the both indications, but potentially get out because it's a swing trade when just the very indication of maybe weakness starts to occur with the velocity line starting to dip down a little bit. Okay, so I've gone ahead and set this up. Let's look at let's just look at a couple of stocks on this too. I want to kind of really just break down, the indicator. So let's look at the indicator here too in just a second. Here is Apple. Where did the actual signal occur? Well, it occurred right here. What did we get? A couple things. I'll move this over here so I can kind of see it better too. Right here. So this was kind of a bit of consolidation. Let's look where the signal came in and any sort of acceleration that starts to occur after that. Right there. Okay. And was it a higher low on the chart? I mean, these are things we could just look at with our eyes. I just drew out Apple. I didn't even look at Apple before. But it's maybe the combinations of the two, the price change and then the acceleration of the price change itself. So price is changing, right? You're getting that the velocity line, but then the acceleration of the price change. So it's kind of like, that's kind of like the aspect of calculus. It's like the change of the change. So interesting. What I wanted to do anyways, at least one way to review this indicator, to take a look at it on kind of a sort of a real-time basis, is to have a scan or on the Market Watch tab. And so what I want to do is just show you, let's look at the code here first, and I'll show you what we just kind of added to it. So here is, in fact, the code right here. We've got our inputs up top, right? Our points up here. We've got exponential. Of course, these can be changed. We're still at a I think I changed the actual, we changed it within the gear, but as we're looking at the indicator itself, you can come down here and take a look at the different acceleration levels. And this is actually pretty straightforward in terms of what it's looking at here. There is this term, and you might have seen this before, this fold term. This is right from the indicator that they built. Basically, the fold function calculates kind of the average difference between the smooth velocity and its past values over a specified length is what I read, was reading about this more and getting more details on that. But the breakdown here, once you have the indicator, kind of like what we talked about a little bit last week, and if we're looking for a dual signal on that, I'll just show you what that looks like right now. Let's see. Velocity acceleration. Okay, the signal itself. Okay. Oh, I put it over here. I'm sorry. I wanted to put it in. I was looking at another indicator here, but I put it over here as a scan into the scan tab itself. And I'm actually going to go into the scan tab right now and pull it up. I'm just going to load this up and then I can share it with you guys. Again, I always need to note that these ThinkScripts aren't guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. This is the scan itself. I'm going to go ahead and just pull this up and I'll pull it up here and I'll measure it down. So all I did was basically take the same information, but add to it at the bottom in terms of calculating different conditions. We were looking at two separate conditions here. This code itself could be added in to other indicators as well. I was looking at our indicator that we discussed last week, and it wasn't too hard to actually fit that in. Let's break this down though. So we've got a cross above the zero line, okay, equal to the average acceleration over the past bar, okay, less than or equal to zero, and the average acceleration greater than zero. What we're looking at is the acceleration crossing above the zero line. And we don't want to forget velocity, because with the velocity too, we want to make sure that it's actually higher than the last day. 1 day back, it's got to be going, it's greater than that period of time. Now I've set this up right now so that these 2 days, the 2 day, I want to see within 1 to 2 days. In other words, like I mentioned previously, we've gone up 1 day or 2 days. Either of those two would work. And let's pull that up. I'll get some of these over here. We can just use, let's see, then the 100 is perfect, the NASDAQ 100. So let's get some of these codes over here, these scripts, and we'll pull this up. Well, I mean, just, yeah. Well, I was going to put a column in. That's okay. You know what? I'll show you the column on the other one. That's okay. Let's just run the scan for now. I'll show you the column on the Market Watch tab anyways. But there it is. See how quick that was? So quick and so fast. We've got 3 of these that meet that criteria right now. Let's pull up them right now. I think Pepsi is one of them. PEP, as it just showed. There is Pepsi. Okay. So notice with Pepsi, first of all, it is downward trending. Could we add a code in here that would get us above a certain moving average for a trend? Absolutely. We could do something like that. You can see this over here. We had just, okay, did we get it in the last 2 days? We crossed above? We did. Actually, technically we did, because it dipped down right here below on this bar. But now we're kind of getting a little bit more of the acceleration in there, and we're just slightly moving higher here. Now, the velocity line is not above zero. And so I guess this is really indicative of, a downward sloping trend. What could be kind of interesting here is you getting this tick higher, plus we are greater than zero. And let's just observe the stock price. What do we have here? Well, that could be a support level. Now we're just tying in the indicator in terms of relative support. Let me go ahead and pull this up too. I've got to adjust this. I've tried to save this. And I'll save it again. Watch. You guys watch me. I'm going to save this so that it adds the prices off to the right. It tends to revert back to percentages on me. It likes those percentages. Anyways, there we go. We talked about this a couple times before. Okay, so let's just do this. Okay, interesting. Could there be a support level in here? Okay, this is another way to look at this. I'm going to pull this back and just look at a longer term chart real quick, because I'm actually going to go into, let's say, a chart like this that actually has my 3 different time frames. What am I doing? There we go, Pepsi. Okay, I'm going to pull this over to a weekly chart. Okay, do we have possibly here, could the signal have given us something interesting? I mean, here is a longer term, possibly longer term support level that's been riding through here since. I mean, well, actually the high was back in 2021. So that kind of was your resistance. And then everything else that touched along there had been support. Okay, so I just want you to step outside the indicator too and say, if those 2 conditions occur on a daily chart, is there something that it could be representing? That's all we're getting at there on that. And by the way, I'm going to put this, let's use this as well. I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and we'll add in that velocity indicator again. I'm going to share that script. I've got to do that into the chat. And I've got one built for the Market Watch tab as well, because I think many of you do like to see the Market Watch tab giving those indications. Here is that indicator. Let's make sure we can see this as we go through it. Click OK. And there we have it. So now you can go over here and, we'll look at the different time frames as we go through this. But that's interesting. And by the way, yeah, okay. So that's good enough there. Let's go ahead and share that script so you've got it. And then we can look at another couple. We're only getting 3 out of 100 that meet that criteria over the last couple of days. Yet, I think the NASDAQ's been up. Share, there we go. We'll share the scan query, and we'll throw that into the chat right now for you, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's look at a couple of these, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. Looks like James has got us all caught up here. Okay, let's do this. What were they? Oh, let's see. Micron. I think Micron's actually been down as well. Okay, flat. Micron has been flat. Maybe, is it holding support? Okay, and one thing I would say on Micron, as we look at this, what do we have right there? Earnings. And prices have really been flattening out. Notice how close we're holding to that zero line right there. Actually, we could build an indicator on this where the acceleration line is actually accelerating quite fast. It's generally what happens when you get above that zero and both are ticking higher, you might get some of these type of areas here, right? Where there is just a quick acceleration. And that's what you're looking for. It's kind of maybe a swing type move over here. Now that was downtrending. It ended up being an interesting bottom there though, didn't it? You got another little spike over here too when you met that criteria. There's a 2-day move right there at that point. Okay, but right now we're just kind of holding flat. It looks like earnings. Well, let's see what earnings. Maybe a little bit of a gap on earnings right there, and we'll see if we get another move over here on earnings. Question. We'll see what happens there with the earnings move. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's go ahead and show you. What was the last one? It was W. There's only 3 of them. WBD. WBD. Okay, look over here. The dual signal. This is all in hindsight. It's kind of a quicker spike right there. Combining those two together, that was a nice little set right there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Russell as well, the Russell 2000. It could be, I want to look at what, some of these companies have been doing within the Russell itself, within the rut right there, which has itself been going down. That's kind of a bigger scan, isn't it? That's going to be, and I've got a number of these columns pulled up. So let's do this instead. Let's just go to the S&P 500. So real quickly, we'll just scan in up top here, as it says, the S&P 500. There we go. And let's see how quick we can get through the 500 stocks. Okay, yeah, what would be a name for this script? I just kept it the same name, and this can be kind of helpful. If you keep it the same name as the indicator itself, that can be helpful because then you'll just know, okay, we had maybe there was a signal that I had, you created a signal on it, and that's just a good way to reference it. So you might just want to have the name, at least of the indicator within it. Okay, so what do we get here? We got 8 companies coming up. God, that's a company I haven't seen in a while. Well, it's Northrop Grumman and TDG. Okay. Okay, maybe a little bit of a bounce off of support. I don't know if today will be a K hold there or not, but we did see an initial spike and it met the criteria. It's within 1 to 2 days here on our acceleration. There's one. And then was the other one, Northrop Grumman. We'll just look at a couple of these as an example. Okay, both though downtrending, right? Could there be strength on the upside here? There could be. Could we also wait for the trend to kind of develop a little bit? Yeah. We could do that. Something like a Tesla. We don't have any signals on Tesla, but let's just say, for example, Tesla already had a change in trend over here, and maybe the continuation of the trend going up, for example, something like that. You can still look at the trend. So I want you to also reference, obviously outside of the indicator. Let's go to the Market Watch tab, and I'll pull it up over here as well. Let's see. I'd probably take off our 1 week. We've got so many expressions. In fact, let's just do it on the NASDAQ 100. We'll take this off. We'll add this in. It's just the velocity accumulation bull signal on the upside. And I'll pull this up here right after the symbol. You might have, different orders you have in here. And I've got a lot of different data in here. Some we looked at last week in terms of extended session percent, things along those lines. But let's go ahead and just go with the NASDAQ 100. Fewer companies for it to run through. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look and see if we get those same ones coming up here. That one's still loading, T-Mobile, but we should just get 3 if this is correct. The same 3. Okay, Pepsi, Micron, and Warner Brothers. So just a different way to look at it. I think many people don't necessarily want to look at the scan. You might one of the benefits too, in the Market Watch tab is you could have, for example, well, what else am I getting to combine with that? There is our MACD crossover. And I think that MACD crossover was within the last 3 bars. Okay, so that was a 3 bar on the MACD crossover. You get a couple of these. Interesting, huh? Totally different indicator. You're not seeing anything down here. It's all red. All zeros down here. But a little bit of an overlap between these two indicators that are completely different from one another. signal here, signal there, and a velocity and a acceleration indication on those two. It's interesting. You're actually getting one of these two. Currently has a K hold, I guess. Well, you don't get a K hold because it's a close above the high to low day. Market's still open for another half an hour. So we'll see what goes on there. But let's go ahead and get this shared as well. In fact, let's look at it, review it, and take a look at a couple of different items. Okay, so I wanted to show you here the difference at the bottom in terms of the signal is hit. Now, I think there are different ways to put this in terms of the plot. I'm just like, the signal is 1 or else 0, and that's what's giving us our numbers here. Is the signal being met or is it not being met? We've got the different colors. Of course, you can change that as well to take a look at, but we have basically still our same indicator. We're just deciding how we want to plot that data in this case, and we're plotting it in that fashion. That's the real only difference. I'll share that right now. Again, these aren't guaranteed for timeliness or accuracy. They just take the data that's being fed into the platform, and then they put it in each category. Let's see, Market Watch. I'll send this out real quick. Market Watch. There it is. That's the link for Market Watch tab. All right, so another one to look at, which is unique and different. I always find it interesting when they do add new indicators in here to the platform. There are a couple more that were added in. I want to take a look at those right now. I chose this one because I thought it would be interesting to do kind of a dual signal, so you're getting signals on both ends. It's kind of different. We haven't really done that before, and then all within one indicator. And then we did it in the scan tab as well as the Market Watch tab. So a couple of different things to look at. That kind of code can be used for other indicators too, obviously, just in the different mediums or formats that you're using. Let's do this. So I'm going to go back over into my charts and we'll go click here. By the way, I was told to slow down my cursor. I'm going too fast. All right, let's do this. These three were also added in. These ultimate, okay, so we got the ultimate smoother filter. Now, the ones that are new, not the ultimate oscillator, but the ultimate smoother filter is brand new, as well as the channels and bands. Now, the channels and bands reference actually the ultimate smoother filter. That's the main line that's being referenced. And then what this draws on top of it are different deviations away from it. Oh, okay. Well, yours will probably work. Mine's not working right now, this demo account, but you can click on here and take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and just show you first off that ultimate smoother so we can go through that. By the way, any questions on what we discussed right now? K-hold. Oh, is it not K-hold? Maybe there's a different term for that. Oh, I think James has his own way of saying K-hold. Yes, that could be it. Okay. Oh, he'll work with me. Nice. I appreciate that. I've got to say it the right way. I mean, whatever catches attention. That's the key. People got to listen. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to take this one off for now, our velocity acceleration, and we'll go ahead and look at the ultimates. It's kind of a catchy word, isn't it, too? The ultimate. So, can it get any better than the ultimate? Well, we'll see. The default here on the ultimate, by the way, is a 20. That's the length that it looks at. Now, it looks at a number of different points. Since it's not telling us, oh, there it goes. See, it pops up eventually. Technical indicator designed to smooth data and reduce lag. Its calculation method is similar to that of, there you go. However, filtering is achieved by subtracting the response of a high-pass filter from the input data. Okay. I didn't have too much of a chance to look into it, but you can see that it is using some we've got coefficients in here. We've got pi. We've got the square root of 2. And as you look at it, that is square root of 2 divided by the length. So I think these are, okay, this is going to be a way to try to smooth. Now, I don't know exactly the calculation on that, but you got it right there. You got a double pi. That is pi multiplied by the square root of 2 divided by the length. What is the length? The length is the length of input that we're looking at, which is 20. Okay, and then you've got this massive calculation down here. I just really recently ran into it, so I haven't had really a chance to go through it, but this is probably all tied into, in fact, I'm certain it is, into this smoothing, because it's really just a smoothing filter. And from that filter, that mainline filter, and let's look at it right now on the chart and see what that looks like. Okay, there, oh, it just plots a red line, which you can't really see. Let's make sure we can see that line. We'll put it into, how about a blue line that's a little bit thicker? We'll see this one. We'll see this for sure. There we go. Okay, so that's your line. Now, generally when you have these smoother filters, what you're looking at is price action, strength of price action getting above this level. Using different calculations for sure, different math, but if you get above that point, kind of like a moving average, this will be kind of a fun one to compare against a moving average and exponential. In fact, let's do it right now. How is this 20 doing versus an exponential 20? Let's take a look at it. But the cool thing is it does have some bars we can put on and channels. So let's just make a quick comparison here in terms of our exponential moving average. There we go right here, which is a little bit quicker. Didn't mean to do it that way. Let's just click on it and add it. We'll go to a 10 period. We'll do 20. We'll make it comparable here. 20, and see how this lines up with the ultimate. Change some colors. We'll go orange for our, maybe a little thick. We'll go 2 here. Orange for the exponential. Much, much quicker. Much, much quicker, as you can see here. The smoother filter, but you could still use them in a similar fashion. Are prices closing above this level? Wow, that's really quick. The bands, they've added in the bands to represent a point up on top and a point down below, like a deviation. Let's clear this off so we can take a look at this. This is just kind of, sort of exploratory at this point in time, but we'll pull this up. Let's see the ultimate bands channels. Now let's go with bands. Is this going to work for me? It is. Nice. Okay, so technical indicator designed to evaluate price volatility. Okay, yeah, it uses the ultimate smoothing filter. That's right. So it ties this in similar to Bollinger Bands, but it should be much smoother. Now, normally when you get smoothing of trends, smoothing of the indicator, it's better for trends sometimes, okay? Now, notice over here with me, a bounce off of this level and closing higher above that point right there. Right there. Like that could be, in fact, okay. I can't say it right. But it's, K-hold. Thank you. K-hold. I say K-hold? K-hold. Okay. Thank you. Okay, he's got it. There is a K-hold right there, a bounce off that lower band. Guess what we're using, folks? We're using the Ultimate series here. We're using the Ultimate Smoothing Filter and then bands on top of it. So it could be an interesting one. I mean, comparing it to Bollinger Bands specifically, right? We could look at Bollinger Bands. There are other bands out there as well, besides the Bollinger Band, okay? But the Bollinger Bands, in many cases, hey, if you touch off the top of the range, prices could be showing strength. If you touch off the bottom, we did that over here, prices could be dipping. And by the way, if you get a squeeze, a tight range, then you're looking for a breakout or a breakdown. Yeah, a lot of times those happen right around earnings right there. Just like a Bollinger Band squeezes, expands or contracts over the time frame that we're looking at. All right, those are the ultimate bands. So we have the ultimate channels too. Let's throw the ultimate channels on top of the bands. Let's make them comparable so we can kind of see what the heck's going on here. Ultimate, and then we'll read through those as well. The channel itself. Now, the one thing we haven't done is adjust these either. So let's do this. I think this is just the deviation from the full deviation from the smoothing filter itself, and it is, yes. So there's the deviation, a 1 deviation or a 2 deviation for bigger type moves. You've got that right there. Really nice. I mean, it's a built-in indicator, right? It's a brand new one. You can add the length in here or the deviations here as well. It's a little adjustment. Yeah, 1.2 deviations or 2 deviations, for example. I'll keep them at 1. I want to compare these with the ultimate channels that I believe are still using the ultimate smoothing filter. Yeah, we've got the same thing here. Let me just verify that right now. The ultimate channels. Okay, technically designed to evaluate trend direction. Right. So these are all about trend, and when it's smoother, I mean, if you look at Bollinger Bands, it's like really sharp. The moves are really quite sharp. We're looking for extended trend moves here as well. So it could be used as that. Calculation method is similar to that of the Keltner. So there's the other channel, Keltner. So this is similar to Keltner as opposed to Bollinger Bands. However, it uses the ultimate smoother filter. There we go. To smooth both the specified price and the average true range. Okay, so what do we know about the average true range? The average true range is volatility adjusted, right? It's and people will use this as like a volatility adjusted potential exit point based upon what that number is. So the true range of the stock is the range. The true range is just the range on the day. When you average it, you're just looking at the high and the low of that day over the past 14 bars. That's an ATR, a 14 ATR is what that's doing right there. So that's interesting. You got that in there as well. Okay, well, they're all the same color here. Hang on. We're going to get to the bottom of this because we do want to see this. And this is, I mean, this is one of the ways I go through and just kind of explore what is happening. I'm going to do the lower channel, everything just in red here so we can see the channel. But I'll go through and I'll just compare these indicators and look back at data and just say, okay, in the trend, what did we see with an upward trend? Obviously, this is a very, very strong trend. Let's just go with Meta here, which has also been strong, but it's also been a little bit volatile. But there we go. There are the comparisons right here. I'm just looking off of a bottom type move. What gets clipped the first? Okay, it looks like the channel is on the outside of the bands, as you can see. Do you see that? So you got your main line in the middle here. Got your ultimate smoother filter. You got your bands right there. You can't really see that bottom red one, but then you've got your channels on the outside of that. So just park that in the back of your mind. Be thinking about trends as prices have gone higher or whatever the case might be, you know, or lower within the trend is how maybe you could decipher an indicator like this. Now we got a ton of lines in there. But all right, folks, well, I wanted to go through this today, and really, you know, the key thing that we did focus in on actually is we did go through and we looked at the velocity and acceleration. We looked at this in detail. I'm going to pull this back up. We'll end on this just a bit to highlight it, where it looks at two indicators. It's really quite interesting. You're looking at the volatility of prices and then the acceleration ultimately of that volatility, or in terms of price action itself. And you can spot interesting levels. Now we did create, you know, we added to this indicator just a small code that gave both signals, right? The velocity has to be ticking higher. The line's got to be going up, and within the last 1 to 2 days, you'll get a moving above the zero line with the acceleration, and that was our scan. Now we took that same data and we just changed the bottom of the script, and you guys have both of those, and we just added it to a column here in the Market Watch tab, which, by the way, we said was interesting. It did have a couple of MACD crossovers in there. So hopefully we provided some insight into, you know, maybe a different way, a different approach that you might be looking at in terms of trading. As I looked at this, it seemed very much more around an acceleration of the trend itself. So we're seeing perhaps you might be seeing a trend that's not going straight down. Maybe it could capture a bounce up the trend if it is going down, maybe a longer term bottom. We looked at Pepsi, you know, but really it's looking for maybe the acceleration part of the trend itself. Where is the biggest move coming? Because it's picking up on the acceleration of that velocity too within the last 1 to 2 days. You saw in there, you can change that script if you want, the days or whatnot, but it is a new indicator. So anyways, hope you found it interesting, folks. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, bottom right hand corner of the screen. We're over 130,000 subscribers. Love to have you on board there. If you like today's presentation, smash that like button. I keep an eye on that. I don't think we had a survey today. So everybody have a great rest of the day, Friday the 13th, an excellent weekend coming up. And I'll look forward to future discussions with you. I'll keep an eye out for topics as well. Thanks so much.